Hello and welcome to our fifth session. And in this session, we are going to customize our ComfyUI installation to our shared folders. ComfyUI is just a user interface and we have to download gigabytes of models from Hugging Face and Civit AI and we have to use it. And we have to store these models in a particular location in ComfyUI for it to access it. By default, all this will be stored inside a folder called models, which is present inside the ComfyUI installation. I am going to use the same models later to train my LoRa's in Linux and also in other versions. So instead of having multiple copies of these models on my machine, I want one shared folder to be used by all ComfyUI installation. And in that case, I have to configure my ComfyUI to my shared models path. And at the same time, I will also configure the input and output folders. In this session, we are going to customize our ComfyUI to work on our customized models, inputs, and output paths. Now come into the Windows File Explorer, come into D drive, and in AI Studio inside Windows ComfyUI Easy Install, we have all our ComfyUI file and the embedded Python environment is inside this Python_embedded. If you open this, you have all the Python related files here. Coming back to ComfyUI Easy Install folder, you have one folder called ComfyUI. Double click to open it and inside this you have one folder called models. Now whatever large language models that we are going to use in ComfyUI will be stored inside this model folder. So if you open it, you can see there are some 25 folders present here. I want this not inside ComfyUI, but I want this as a shared folder. If you come into AI Studio, we already had created a folder called models. Now I want all my models file to be inside this models folder. So I will come into AI Studio, ComfyUI Easy Install, ComfyUI, and now I will select this model folder, right click and I will cut this from here and come into AI Studio, right click and paste it. I have this entire models folder placed inside this AI Studio. Now I have to tell ComfyUI that all my models file has to be stored in this models folder. Now I have to redirect it to a different folder. If you come into your Windows ComfyUI Easy Install ComfyUI, if you scroll down, you have one file extra model path.yaml.example. I want this file to be edited. Now before I start editing it, so if I select this file, right click and if I come into edit in Notepad, editing here will be difficult. This cannot recognize the Python language. So I will close this, and to edit these kind of files and to write our code, we are going to use an integrated development environment, in short called as IDE. I will come into my browser and in search, I am going to search for Visual Studio Code and press enter. Now come to Visual Studio Code here and click on download for Windows. My Visual Studio Code download has been blocked. If I click here, I will enable download unverified file and the file will be downloaded. So now I will come into the download folder. I will double click on this VS Code user setup. I will click on I accept the agreement, click on next. I will leave this default path as it is, click next. Even this start menu, I will leave it as it is, click next. I will enable create a desktop icon. I will also enable add open with code. Click on next and in setup now, click on install. Once the installation is complete, I will enable launch Visual Studio Code and click on finish. By chance, if Visual Studio Code doesn't get launched, double click on the shortcut over here to launch Visual Studio Code. As soon as I start for the first time, it is asking me, do you want to use your AI features? So I will enable this option and click on use AI features. I have to log in into my github.com. So you can come into your browser, search for github.com, and here click on sign up. Create an account, enter your email ID, enter a password which should be 15 characters long with at least one capital letter, one number and one special character. Add a username and in region choose your country India, and I click these preferences. This is not compulsory. Then click on the create account button. If you come into your email account, they would have sent code for you. Coming back to your GitHub page, enter that code here. Once you enter the code, you can now log in with your username and password. So once you are logged in, you can click on continue here and it asks you to authorize the Visual Studio Code. Click here authorize. You can click on open Visual Studio Code. Once the authorization is over, you can now start using Visual Studio Code with Copilot AI. And we are now going to edit this file. I will right click on this file and choose open with code. This file will open in my Visual Studio Code. All the lines of this file is currently commented. You have to uncomment the lines and add the right path. So to make it easier for you, I have provided this entire template of extra models path.yaml file. If you come back to your in AI Studio models folder, there are some 25 folders and I have to create 25 paths here manually. So instead of doing this manually, you can now come into the YouTube video page or the e-learning page, scroll down, come into the description and click on more. I have provided you with a Patreon link, and if you click on this Patreon link, this will bring you to this AI Film Studio Setup and Filmmaking Patreon page. And here I have provided with this link to extra model paths.yaml file. Click on this and this is a Google Drive link. Click on download and this file will now be downloaded. Click on this folder icon to come into your downloads folder. Now just select this file, cut this, come into D AI Studio, Windows, ComfyUI Easy Install, ComfyUI folder, right click and paste this. I can now just right click on this and click on open with code to open in Visual Studio Code. I will select this example file and close this. And here you can see all the 25 lines have been correctly added here. Now, only thing you have to do is you have to change only this base path. If you have stored your models in the same folder or in the same structure that I have given to you, this will be the same, DAI Studio models. So now I will close this file. If I close Visual Studio Code and come back, I also have to configure my output and input folder. So if you come into AI Studio, we have one renders folder. I want all my outputs to be stored in my renders folder. I will come back to AI Studio. I will create one more new folder. I will call this as inputs. All my inputs will be stored in this inputs folder. Come back into D, AI Studio, Windows, ComfyUI Easy Install, and you have this start ComfyUI.bat file. It is safer to just Control C and copy it and paste it. Have a copy of it. Right click, start ComfyUI.bat file, and even this you open it with Visual Studio Code. You are having Python embed python.6 and you have this Windows standalone build. After this, you have to add space, add to hyphen, output directory, add inverted comma, and in between the inverted comma, come to your folder in DAI Studio renders. I want my output. So I will select this path, right click and copy this. Come back to Visual Studio and between this inverted comma, paste it. Leave a gap, add to hyphen, and now call for input directory. Come back to AI Studio, open inputs folder, come into the address bar, press Ctrl C or right click and copy this path. Come back to Visual Studio Code, add inverted comma, and in between the inverted comma, add this input directory. You have to go to File and save this. Now I will close my browser and I will close all my windows. I will also close Visual Studio Code, and let us now run ComfyUI EZI and just check it. Say I'm getting an error. And if you see the error here, unrecognized argument DAI Studio renders. So there is some problem with our startup bat file that we created. So I will close this, come into DAI Studio, Windows, ComfyUI Easy Install. I select the start ComfyUI.bat file, open it in code. One mistake I have done is I cannot use space. So in between output and directory, I should add an hyphen. Even here in between input and directory, I have to add an hyphen. This hyphen I had missed. Now I will go to File, save this, close my Visual Studio Code, double click ComfyUI.EZI and now check it. So it is now loading. So now ComfyUI is loading correctly. Now I will come back to my command prompt and see whether there are any error. It is saying flash attention is missing. We will install it later. I will now close my command prompt. Immediately in my browser you see reconnecting. I will also close my browser. If you have any issue in adding this path, you can come into AI Film Studio Setup and Filmmaking Patreon page. The link is in the YouTube video or in the e-learning page. I have provided you with input output folders configured start ComfyUI.bat file. Click on this link, click on the download button, click on download anyway. If it is blocked, click here and choose download unverified file. Open and come into your downloads folder. Copy or cut this file from here. Come into your DAI Studio, Windows, ComfyUI Easy Install and paste it. We have successfully configured our ComfyUI to our shared models folder and also have rerouted our ComfyUI input and output folder to inputs and renders folder. So from our next session, we are ready to start generating AI contents in our own machine.